Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John's reporters for the 22nd. Well, it didn't take long for the turnaround. Trump solved the Greenland issue and framework was established. So there you have it. That ended that whole trauma. Just as we mentioned the other day, it was much to do about just baloney and market reacts and you flip everyone around. Doesn't change the fact that the investment and all that's still there and it's going to start improving as the quarter moves on into the beginning of the second one. And it's just a question of whether it's enough and going to happen within the time frame for the midterms. Plain and simple, as far as that goes. You're still not seeing the movement on oil and that you need, but from an NQ standpoint, you can see the turnaround pretty clean. Supported well off the 50, and you got a move of that DOC where orange now dipping below red was pretty darn close. It's like right at the edge. And if this continues a little bit, it'll happen right at the 76. And you have declining 100%, so they'll meet up at the top. So it's a reprieve, and it just sort of quells some of the trauma that people feel from back and forth. But again, this is the weak hands, not staying in with things that are back and forth, and that's where they're going to get beat up all the time. You know, Never ends. So, from a Treasury standpoint, again, this is still back and forth. Nothing. The Fed is not really involved in any of this, though you did hear arguments about whether or not Trump can fire one of the Fed governors. So we'll see how that one plays out. But that won't be again until the end of the year. So, yeah, much to do about nothing as well. And then, of course, oil here still back up towards the highs, in the 60 range. It's not horrible. It's just not of any benefit whatsoever. And it certainly isn't going to propel things. Now, had any of these things resolved from Ukraine, Venezuela being able to get, shipments to the U.S., not having issues with, fighting with Canada, and that, yeah, you might have seen some better things. But what it does do is it does put pressure on some of these different allies because, um, you've got the situation where Canada now is they've got a problem because if the U.S. is taking Venezuela oil, they don't necessarily need it from Canada. That puts political pressure on them. So, a lot of these internal fights are getting resolved. It's just taking some time. From a euro standpoint, of course, they still love the euro. They think that despite the fact that everyone agrees that they're in a de facto war with Russia already, yeah, they're just, it's okay. They think somehow it's going to work out well for them. From a gold standpoint, yeah, this isn't going to end. It's just a matter of how long it takes to get to over 5K plus. And, as soon as your deficit numbers come through, though the U.S. has got a chance that you quell enough of the fraud, you reduce enough of the government employees, and yeah, you might get a little bit better off. The problem is you just keep spending more as you save it, and that doesn't do you any good because you're not saving anything; you're just spending it in a different area. Now, there are more productive means of spending, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they're doing with it. Um, the idea that you could grow out of a deficit is true if you're not still spending at outrageous levels, and they are. From a cryptocurrency standpoint, again, still stuck in that same rut, waiting, searching for that moment where it's just going to transition into a viable, usable, regular, like stable coins, and everyone's going to use them. It isn't there yet. So what we saw from the early part was short cover rally here, magenta over, and MBI white rising. That's a beautiful call right there from the zero. You're headed at least to the 50% on that one, if not to the 100. And then, interestingly enough, it caved back a little bit, just did a little bit more than a 50% retrace of that. And then you had your MBI white leading slightly, but magenta crossed back above, and then it started to take off. And literally, once it pushed above 25, that was your cue. It was going all the way to the 100, and it, sure enough, did that. Clean and simple, pretty straightforward stuff there. So that was all nice from that standpoint, and all reflective of the news as they got details from Davos. Everything flipped around. You can see the early morning was the excitement push, fade in between during some of the remarks, and then as everything got digested and realized that everyone was going to make nice, It all went perfectly back to the top, and nothing really happening from the Asian session, even into the European session, has been all golden because everybody is happy now. There isn't any conflict anymore, and joy has returned. And now it's just a question of um, will these companies continue to make outrageous amounts of money from AI, or is that going to stall out at any point here in the near term? But from an earnings standpoint, everyone's looking at really excellent numbers, and the market's very excited about all that. So, um, gravy train has not ended. I mean, it's looking like it's going to be a positive year, at least from a growth standpoint. It could be a record even. As always, anything relevant, though, I will let you know. Have a good one. Trade well.